Are you one of those people who believe that this opening montage was intended to be playable? Perhaps it's a consequence of cut content.
Here I come.
Well, look, I was one of these people. This cinematic absolutely looks like a segment of the game which should have been playable. It would have helped us build rapport with Jackie, it would have introduced us to Fixers, V's personality, and I'd love to sit here and say that this is all true and that this is the topic of today's discussion, but unfortunately it's all a load of bollocks. This montage is not cut content, and it was never intended to be anything more than just simple storytelling. But look, we still have something really interesting to discuss here, because this right here is the prologue cutscene itself. Yes, it actually exists entirely in-game. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be breaking into Cyberpunk 2077's opening montage area to see what interesting secrets we can find. I also want to extend a big thank you to Altira, or Altira, however, I'm sorry, I've probably butchered that, for inspiring this video. Anyways, enough rambling, let us begin. The first thing you'll notice about this montage space is that everything is loaded in at once, give or take. There is definitely some culling on the go here, but the montage is basically all crammed into isolated yet somewhat overlapping spaces. The other thing which you'll quickly notice about this montage location is the complete lack of NPCs. None of the characters which you witness in the opening cinematic are loaded into this montage area. It does initially make the space feel quite odd and, dare I say, a touch uncomfortable. It feels a little bit like a film set. It's as if the whole of 2077 takes place in some sick Truman Show-esque simulation where everything is handcrafted to create this illusion of scope. The first space to explore is this street in Japantown, which is an actual replica of this exact spot in regular Night City. So these cars, which can be seen in traffic off to the right, are actually pretty interesting. There's a surprising amount of them, and each one seems to be of varying quality. Like these front two are basically just blurry shapes, yet most of these orange cars are much higher detail, which is pretty strange to me because they're further away from the camera. Anyway, I love this front right car because its windshield has this bizarre see-through effects going on. You can look into this vehicle, but you'll actually be staring into the map itself. This black car is not only floating slightly, but also has a crude interior spawned in. In the montage, we can also see that to our left is a road which veers around a corner. This is again here because we're in a ripped Japantown environment, but in the montage area we can see that this space just ends beyond the corner, which is expected, but some of the road's debris still exists even when the road doesn't. These vending machines also work just fine. You can interact with them and even consume the item they give. This lower left part of Japantown is also faithfully retained, although there is a distinct lack of detail. We do still get litter on the floor and even this weird bit of mud or dirt which is floating in the air, but the shop fronts are basically absent here and instead replaced by these generic facades. Around this bottom left side we can also notice just how messy this environment actually is. The floor has been clearly laid by a cowboy, the walls don't line up, and even below the street we can find this odd black square. We eventually hit a fork in the road which goes left and right. Both directions lead to nothing. Towards the end of this street we get a healthy amount of these low quality buildings which definitely degrade in quality the further back you travel. There's also a floating advert all the way out here in the sky, which isn't actually visible in any of the montage shots. And look, I think it goes without saying that every building in this street, and really just in this general montage space, is empty, hollow, and lacking any sort of detail. So, sorry guys, there's no hidden interiors here. But our next stop is actually a hidden interior. This is Mama Wells' house, a space which I could have sworn was in regular Night City, but apparently Sadly, it only exists in this montage space, so this is a well and truly exclusive look. You saw it here first. This place is really cool for a variety of different reasons, but above all, it's a space which is so insanely detailed for a place which is never even explorable. To begin, this location actually uses the same layout as the house from the Family Matters gig, so this should help answer some questions relating to the layout and the detail and why things are the way they are, but then at the same time it also raises a lot of questions. The front room in Mama Wells's house is extremely detailed and full to the brim with general clutter. In the montage, we can see that there are 2 rooms which are never accessible. We can check these out in our montage space and see that the left one is actually just this little Harry Potter cupboard under the stairs. It's so tiny. The right side room is a touch more developed, but it's still just an empty room. You can, however, look out of the windows in this space and onto the street where we just were, which is pretty cool. But again, this gives me that uncomfortable liminal feeling. If this place was a Corpo's equivalent of Tranquility Lane, this would 100% be a lookout post for security. There isn't much else to report on in this downstairs area, aside from these scribbles on a cabinet which do look a touch cyber-psychotic. Although if we begin to climb the stairs, we can see that there's these drawings on the wallpaper. I would assume that these were done by Jackie when he was a small boy child, but again, these are just so insanely detailed for something that is barely visible. Notice how even the wallpaper isn't perfect. It's rippled and it's cut in certain areas, creating this homely yet slightly dilapidated look. It's the kind of attention to detail which really makes me ponder if this space was ever intended to be accessible in regular Night City. The landing of Mama Wells's house is also never visible in the montage, although it does definitely exist in game. It's basically just a carbon copy of the gig location from Family Matters. We also have this little fence structure which is just poking through the back wall, which I don't think is intentional, but by far the coolest thing about this building is Jackie's room, because in the montage there's a quick shot where V and G in the montage, there's a quick clip where V and Jackie are looking in his mirror. This mirror is still present in the free roam version, and we can see just how expensive this reflection is. This has to be the best fucking mirror in Night City. Surely, look at this thing. Well, you would think so by looking at this, but let me tell you something, man. This isn't actually a reflection. We can quite literally clip inside this mirror and see that this supposed reflection is actually an entire 3-dimensional space. And you can even see, if you were to go out onto the landing, that these 2 variants exist literally side by side. It's actually quite funny to look at. I love this developer trickery. It isn't something which you see so much in open world games, so it's a welcome treat to find something like this in 2077. I particularly like this Arasaka gun poster, which is never visible in the montage. It's really crispy, and that goes for most decorations in Mama Wells's house. You can literally read these documents if you really wanted to, but aside from that, the house is basically covered. Next up, we have the Car Showroom. I will say, before anything else, I really wish these were in actual Night City. Don't get me wrong, I like the Auto Fixer and the Grand Theft Auto missions for Mullet Man, but a part of me wishes that it was a touch more immersive. It kind of takes away the punch of spending shitloads of money if everything is done on a computer. You know what I mean? This car showroom is actually using the layout of the Atlantis Club, an environment which was featured in the Never Fade Away flashback mission as Mr. Silverhand himself. The windows are a dead giveaway. Even this one on the far left still has that little orange tint which is used in the mission. If we take ourselves away from the camera location, we can also note that there are various miscellaneous club props hanging around. We have this tiny bar with some tiny stools, and also this higher up private snug. This private snug is actually visible in the montage footage, although you'd probably never realise what it even is with the half second it's on the screen. We can see that the rest of the room is very much a shell of the Atlantis. There's fake doorways, parts of the roof which are missing, and just loads of these creepy dark corners which just kind of exist quietly in the background. As you're walking around this place, you may also spy a little bit of smoke coming up through the floor. Don't worry about it, you know, it's perfectly safe. But actually it is safe, I'm not bullshitting you, because right below us is the nightclub environment shown in the montage. But what we're seeing here is that instead of making a whole unique building for a car showroom which never exists in regular Night City, CDPR instead built it inside the Atlantis shell. But if we return to the showroom itself, the main purpose of it is to really show off our first car purchase. And yes, this thing is actually very real and it's also very drivable. The bougie Caliburn on the right is also perfectly drivable, and it has this nice black and red detailing with this little sign. One thing which I personally never noticed was that the Archer is actually on sale, as evident by these two purple signs. These are indeed visible in the montage, but barely. Likewise, we have this floating pink discount sticker, which is barely visible in the montage. I had to rewatch this like thrice over to even notice that it existed. I know it may seem a little odd to point out, but I do actually find all of this quite interesting. It's almost as if CDPR wanted to draw our attention to the fact that this Archer is being bought at a discounted price. Like, they wanted to make it apparent that even though we've just been paid by Padre according to the montage chronological order, we still have to go for the discounted set of wheels. All the while, there's this fresh Caliburn still in view, but just ever so slightly out of reach. It kind of feels like a subtle story piece, a little metaphor to show that the success we are achieving is still not enough for Jackie and V. Maybe I'm looking into it a bit too much, but I wonder why CDPR didn't make this clearer. It's a nice subtle foreshadow at V and Jackie's unrelenting greed for fame and notoriety, one which would end up eventually costing them their lives. Anyway, let's leave that for the English student. We are now in the nightclub portion of the montage, which is quite literally below the car showroom. The only couple things which I personally found interesting about this place are these two rooms which completely fucking blind us. I think from memory, one of these is where the staircase would be, which should take us up to the second floor in the Atlantis, and the other is I don't actually know, I think it's a toilet. Just as a little side note whilst I'm editing this, I was walking around here trying to get some footage and I just felt like something was watching me, and out of the darkness crept this goddamn NCPD officer. My heart actually did a little jump and I truly thought I was losing my mind for a second. And from exploring out of bounds areas, generally speaking, this isn't something which is too common. In fact, this is the only time I've ever seen this happen. So what this means is a bit of a mystery to me. This is Padre's basketball court. The first thing I noticed is how this Padre mural is on the back wall behind the fence. This is different to regular Night City because if we were to go and find Padre organically, we can see that this Padre mural is instead up here. It's the same thing as this basketball backboard. The montage version has this extra detailing with the Valentino graffiti, but the regular Night City model doesn't have this. It's clean as a whistle. It's these sort of small changes that make you realize a surprising amount of thought actually went into these montage shots. This nice purple car off to the right is again a real car. You can scan this thing and also drive it around. If we turn away from the montage scene, we can see that Night City itself is just here. We're all the way out beyond the sea defences, and if we look closely, we can also witness the Braindance School. Likewise in Padre's Paradise, just a little out of the viewable area, we get to witness this staircase just going up to the heavens, and in the sunlight this this genuinely does look quite biblical, so I'll be careful what else I comment. Okay, so next up, we are joined with Misty's shop. Misty's place is strange to me because, a bit like Padre's basketball court, there's some minor aesthetic changes to the montage space compared to regular Night City. Misty's shop, to begin with, has loads of these floating holographic prices in the montage version. These are not present in the Night City version, which is a real shame because I actually really like them. They definitely add to the claustrophobic element of this place and really help sell the ambience. In the Night City version of Misty's shop, we also get this huge hologram which is seen on the counter. In the montage version, this is actually entirely absent, and also the pillar is a completely different model. We also have this little rug in front of the counter which is suddenly gone, and one of these sequin curtains is missing from above. There's just dozens of these tiny changes which I can report on here, but really I'm getting bored already, so I'll keep this one short. I just want to say it's kind of odd to me how much is similar here, but also how much has just been changed for seemingly no reason. The only logic I can provide for this is in relation to performance. I know that this cutscene used to be hilariously broken back in the day, so maybe the changes were for the benefit of optimization. That's about the only thing I can say. Is there anything else about Misty's though? No, not really. The back door works and opens onto nothing. The front door doesn't exist and also opens onto nothing. That's it actually. So onto the next one. Next up is Vic's Clinic, and this place is pretty similar to Misty's. Generally speaking, Vic's shop in the montage version is pretty spot on at face value. Although we can notice some weird oddities like Vic's chair being missing and also this door being on the wall, which is never present in regular Night City. There's also just a load less detail the further back we go, which is very much expected. So pretty much anything past Vic's desk is the same structure as Night City, but just without all the clutter and detail. The only real thing which interested me about montage Vic's is the space beyond the gate right at the end. So this is going to touch off topic, but I promise it all connects eventually. I once heard that Vic's place was once planned to be half Ripperdoc and half car storage. This is obviously a rumour, but I think the general idea was that this back portion of Vic's place would have acted as a kind of garage for V, a place to store cars which we could buy or collect in regular Night City. And to be honest, this does kind of make sense to me, considering we see Vic so early on in the game's story. To me, he's kind of set up like this important character, like a kind of anchor for V, like a guy that kind of gets V back up on his feet. And to me, maybe I've just played too many games, but this kind of seems like he should offer us something, like something unique which isn't just a Ripperdoc. That is where I think a garage would have made sense with this space, and it would have made sense to be introduced at this point in the game's story. If we were to break through this gate in regular Night City, we can see that the ramp does extend up. If we were to click behind this gate and immediately bear right, we can see that this actually connects to another similar looking gate. This gate is actually perfectly accessible in regular Night City. I can't help but imagine if this was at one point in time supposed to be an alternative entrance to Vic's clinic. It's almost like the tunnel itself was cut, but these two kind of bog standard entrances were kept intact. But look, the reason why I bring this up in the first place is because in regular Night City, this tunnel area has no collision, which is pretty odd considering it's pretty detailed and also not so far from the playable area. However, if we were to compare this to the montage version, this same space does actually have collision. You can walk around here, no problems whatsoever. So this does make me wonder why two mostly identical areas have differing collision, especially when in my mind it would have made sense for the montage version to not have collision as opposed to regular Night City. If we for 1 second humour the idea that Vic's was once part garage, part Ripperdoc, maybe this montage collision is some early rendition which use this abandoned idea. Who knows? The final two spots which I want to mention are Lizzie's and also this back alley. Starting with Lizzie's, in this montage space there's actually quite a few rooms as opposed to just the one, probably because it's a copy and pasted prefab from Lizzie's itself. You can't open any of these private doors and all the interiors are pretty much identical. We can venture off to the left corner, which as expected ends quite abruptly. We can however see that this location is shrouded by a big grey box. This is quite common in 2077 and a good amount of interiors use this method. The right side of Lizzie's has this generic door which actually opens up but just takes us out into the grey box. The two toilets in Lizzie's also have their doors present but they don't have any actual interiors, although the left one has this sticker decal which is just floating in midair, so that's pretty cool. This next scene where we're chasing an unknown fella down an alley is mildly interesting to me. It's a perfectly curated slice of life which begins and ends extremely abruptly. The only thing I really wanted to say about this place is that it reminds me a bit of the New York flashback scenes in Phantom Liberty, which then also further remind me of old COD Zombies maps. You know, that feeling of not being shown too much but just enough for the mind to wonder. It's an age-old forced perspective technique, one which actually got me into this whole out of bounds exploration business. You know, if it wasn't for Transit's Bus Route B and Newtown's Fallout Shelter, I probably wouldn't be sat here making this video. And really guys, that just about concludes everything interesting from the opening montage location. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed, and as always if you did enjoy, please do feel free to leave a like on the video. Check out my Discord using the link in the description, and if you made it to the end of this video, comment down below Febreze Air Mist Spiced Apple. This is what I use all the time in my room. It smells fucking great. It smells like Christmas. Alright, cheers for watching guys, and as always, I'll catch you lot in a bit.